hey, if you're a US citizen and you want to protect your retirement and you haven't got our free ebook yet, then you're really missing out. So click on the link in the description and find out how you can secure your retirement and your future today.
Adam, James.
Lee, how you doing?
Hey up, Lee.
Yeah, I'm good. You know, fighting the fight as we do. How's things your end?
Yeah, all good. All good. We always say we're always busy, but we are, that's the truth. Busy helping people. So yeah, all good. Trying to decode what we're being told and work out what's actually happening.
Yeah, you must have been busy last week because we normally on with you about a week ago, weren't we?
Yeah, we've had do you know what it is? Some people will watch us for quite a while, and then all of a sudden they'll say, I've been watching you for a year or whatever, and now's the time for me to get started. So sometimes it can come in waves of people just being like, I'm ready to go. So
it's strange how it works, isn't it? It's strange how it works. Yeah, because people say I've been watching it for 2 years, 3 years or whatever, and then they've watched a certain video and it's just triggered. They've just gone, right, okay, it needs to happen. I need to do it now, you know?
Yeah. So
wow. I think as well, with everything that's going on in the world, you've got like all of this knowledge from you guys. It's sort of like probably in the back of someone's mind. They're like, "Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week." You know, you get a lot of that, right? And then think, you know, you talk to somebody, "Oh, you were never going to run out of cash. The banks are never going to do that." So you get a bit of left wing nonsense, and they keep on going. Then all of a sudden, they see the flashes in the mainstream media and all this other stuff. They went straight on the phone.
Yeah. Things are actually happening. Things are happening that have been told are going to happen.
Yeah,
that's why. Yeah, definitely.
It seems to be a tidal wave that's not stopping now. You can just see it's coming closer and closer and closer.
I think people get desensitized as well. It's like the thin end of the wedge, and it's like the nudge factor, isn't it? So you get nudged a little bit, and you think, "Well, that's a bit, you know, that's not quite right," and then you get nudged again, you get desensitized, and then you look back and think, how did we get here? And it was bit by bit by bit over time. Like when you're in the sea and you know the current's slowly pulling you out and you can't always notice it, and then you think, you know, where's land? It's disappeared. And I feel like that's what happens. People
that's a good way to explain it. Yeah.
Quite frightening.
In the hamster wheel.
Frightening, that.
Yeah. But I think if you really take stock of what's happening, that's the case. That really is what happens. And they keep you busy, so distracted.
That's the system. That's the way it's been designed, I believe. Totally believe that. They've designed it that way. So people are too busy trying to keep their head above water to even do any research or do anything else or look at anything else. Yeah, your head's down, isn't it? When your head's down, you're not looking at anything.
James, funny you should say that. I saw a video last week with I think it was about 7 or 8 different people in the US who were, you know, I would say the middle class. So they were on about 80 grand a year. It was a lot of money, and they were actually saying that, you know, this is quite incredible now. You know, and they were all mainly women as well, a lot of nurses, and they were saying, I'm earning more than I've ever earned before, and yet I can't even afford to do anything. All I'm doing is just like this, struggling to stay above.
I've done the numbers on this.
Fuel prices, housing prices, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, and after watching the video, you know, you're starting to see, you know, the real causes. Like they wanted you got rid of the poor who are already on the food banks. That's done. That's the first job done in COVID. That smashed a lot. It's a tiny little business. I think it was like 40,000 in Europe alone that went. Then you know, the next part was like, right, we need to smash the middle class. We got rid of a few of them, but still a lot of them hung on and carried on. So that's the next. You know, they want poor and rich. So the elites can fly all over the world, and they're going to, you know, downsize our airports. In I think England, there's going to be like one in England, one in Ireland, and one in Scotland. That's it. But we were talking to some people who work with KLM Airlines the other day, and they're having a massive fight now with Schiphol Airport in Holland. And they were saying they're downsizing the airport. And why are they downsizing the airport? We know exactly why. It's coming, mate. It's just around the corner. So the same with the financial crisis, with what's going on. It's all coming together, mate. Anyway, talking about finance, what have you got for us?
Yeah. Well, today we want to, I guess, just show people what they're letting themselves in for when they trust banks, trust the government. And we're not saying what you should do. We're not saying you should do this or you shouldn't do that or whatever. We're just saying whatever you decide to do, do it with your eyes open. And there's some things that you might know a little bit about, but you might not fully understand how it works. And we want to show you that today.
Yeah. And as ever, this isn't advice. It isn't financial advice. It's just us sharing our knowledge and our experience and what we've found and what we know. Take it or leave it, but it's not us advising you or telling you what to do.
Yep.
Good information.
So we just want to start with a nice quote here that'll either infuriate you or inspire you. I don't know. Let's see. So it says here that, and this is Henry Ford in 1922. It's well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system. For if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. And yeah, why would he be saying that? Because we're not taught how the monetary system, the banking system works. We're taught about how to manage our budget and manage our household and how, or not even much of that, but the banking and financial system doesn't operate on the same rules as how we operate our own household economy. So you got your personal economy and then the kind of global economy. And it can't. Think of it like this. For you as an individual, let's say you have a small business and you borrow lots of money and you take too many risks and everything collapses. Who pays the bill? Who has to cover those costs? It's you. It's you, the individual. The banking system works very, very different. They actually work on a system called fractional reserve banking. Look this up if you've never heard of it before. And what it means is that the bank, when you deposit money into the bank, they don't have to keep all of it there. They don't have to keep it all readily available. They can keep somewhere in the region of 10%, and they can go and risk 90%. So they don't have to keep it all on deposit, which is madness.
It is. Sorry, Adam, I didn't realize it was that much. That's a bit of a shocker for me, mate.
Yes. It gets worse. Like you strap in, it gets a lot worse than that. And they can go and risk this 90%. And when it all goes wrong and they take too many risks, they don't have to pick up the tab themselves. There's various mechanisms that can be used so that they don't have to, but they don't have to pick up the tab themselves. And we'll explain how that works in a second. It goes one step further than that, because think about it like this. So let's say that 10% on deposit is kept there and the 90% is lent out. Let's say they're lending mortgages, car loans, all these kind of things. And they lend someone 10,000 euros, dollars, pounds, whatever, to go and buy a car. Well, when that person borrowing from the bank gets that 10,000, what do? They deposit it in their bank. And what does their bank do? It says, don't need to keep all of this on deposit. I can keep 10% and I can lend out the rest.
Do it again.
The money supply on paper multiplies. Do you see how that works? And that keeps going over and over again. So when you hear about, we'll show you some examples of this. When you hear about people like a run on the banks and people queuing up to get their deposits out of the bank, it's absolutely catastrophic, because as soon as you start to pull some of this 10% that they've kept on reserve out of the bank, everything starts to collapse because there's so much weighing on this 10% that's still in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Scary.
It's almost like an upside down triangle, where if you take the small bit at the bottom, the whole thing collapses. And that's why governments and banks are all kind of in bed together. And when banks are in trouble, governments step in because they don't want everyone to panic. They want to be part of it. And we'll see why in a second. So the big thing for us is why we always talk about metals is control. Number one is always control. We just want to control what we've worked hard for. And when you have paper money in a bank, what you are doing is you are handing over control. You hand over money, you are handing over control. When you have the money with you, let's say you have some money in your hand, it's on your personal balance sheet. You own it, you control it. When you give it to a bank, it's now on the bank's balance sheet, and therefore they control it. And we've seen this so many times. We've actually had many accounts from our customers that have had, I guess, resistance from banks when they've said, look, I'm wanting to do this. And the bank said, we're not quite happy with that. Okay, but why are you telling me what I can do with my money? And they've said, the bank have literally said this. This was a quote from a customer. Yes, it is your money, but it's in our account. Basically, we control it. You've given it to us and we control it. So if you're wanting to do something with it that we're not quite happy with, that we put under the umbrella of compliance and anti-money laundering and looking after you, we'll just tell you can't do that because we're in control. You hand over control when you put money into a bank. Bank accounts are free. Why are they free? Because they want you to deposit money. They want you to do it. There's a benefit for them for you depositing. And even better than that, they make it even better. The marketing's even better. Give us your money and we'll actually give you interest. Oh, I get something for giving them my money. Why? Why are people, why is there a company out there that says you give me your money and I will store it, I will look after it, and I'll even pay you for you leaving it with me, and you don't pay anything for that service? Because they get so much from it. Like, please look at this in like face value terms. If a company popped up tomorrow, it wasn't called a bank, it was called ABC company, and they said, just leave your money in the corner. Come in, it's a big warehouse, just leave it in the corner. Oh, do I pay anything for the service? No, we'll store it for you. In fact, if you stick it in the corner, we'll pay you. What? This is bizarre. And that's what banks are doing. There's a massive benefit to them.
We've been sharing this knowledge for like 10 years now, or more than that, I don't know, isn't it? We've been sharing this with people. But over the past 3-4 years, more and more customers and people have been telling us they've been witnessing it for themselves. It's come from their mouths and not ours. They've been telling us exactly, they've said to us, look, we've watched your video, we knew this was the way it is, but we've actually witnessed it now. We've witnessed it. We've actually gone through it. We've had to deal with the banks where they've been telling us what we can and can't do. Story after story after story after story,
there was a video a couple of weeks ago I was watching, which is funny because we're doing this now. And the guy, I think the guy had quite a few thousand in the bank. And he's gone to, I can't remember what he was taking out. I think it was between 2 and 3 grand, which apparently you're not allowed to do in certain countries now. And straight away they were banging him with these questions. What's the money for? So he was going in each one of these accounts he had, and he was going, right, well, I'm taking this money and I'm actually going to go to the strip club, get a load of cocaine and get off the nuts. And then he'd go to another one and he'd have another, and he was just, the camera was basically there to show what was going on when you wanted to take your own money out of the bank, the questions they were asking, and he was just feeding them absolute nutty job answers. And he did about 3 or 4 different places. And it was insane. It was like, well, like this with the money. It's my money. You're just providing a service here. So let's get the fact in here, right? You provide a service. Give me my money. And if you want to go in, like you said, if you want to go in, you got like a couple 100,000 in there, and you want to go in there and you went, right, I'm buying something. I need 35, 40 grand out there. Mate, it's like a major operation that takes days.
Good luck.
There was one time, and a relatively small amount, I wanted to take some money out of the bank, and you have to book an appointment and all this kind of stuff. Sit in the waiting room, and act like a good little boy or girl. Sit there, wait your turn, and then they called me in and said, "What is it for?" And I said, well, I don't think that's any of your business. With all due respect, you can ask as many questions as you like, but nothing to do with you. And they said, well, we're not happy of where this money's come from. And I said, it's really strange. Why are you asking now when I'm trying to take it out? If you weren't happy where it came from, you should be asking when it came in, not when it's going out, because that's the right way to do it. oh, this really kind of ruffled her feathers, and she went upstairs and got somebody else, someone more senior, and said, we want to know where this money's come from. And I said, then you should have asked when I deposited it, not when I'm taking it out. And they said, well, anti-money laundering. And I said, yeah, let's just remember, you're the bank that got fined for laundering money for the Mexican drug cartels. Willingly doing this. And I said, and I can pull it up on my phone, the article of how you got fined. You were, accepted the fine. But for me, little old me, taking hardly anything out, I'm getting quizzed. And she kind of was a bit sheepish and just said, well, we've learned our lesson from there. And I just said, oh, really? Have you? Have you really? It turned out they wouldn't give me the money on the day, but they said I could withdraw smaller amounts each day to make up to that amount. So I could do it in stages through the cash machine. And they were totally fine with that. And I said, okay, so just let me get this straight. You won't give me the cash now because you're worried about anti-money laundering and all this kind of stuff. But if I take it out bit by bit, the same amount over time, you're okay with that? Yeah, that's fine. I said, so really, you don't really care where it came from because you'd be suspicious of both options. I'm getting the money at the end of the day, whether it comes out in stages or in one go.
Yeah.
Why are you putting these restrictions? And she said, in 10 years, I've never let anyone refuse to answer these questions. And I said, well, everyone's used to bending over, aren't they? Really?
Yeah.
So that was my experience. And I just said, this is stupid. I'm getting the money at the end of the day anyway, just in a different form. And can you see how backwards your rules are? So,
good one.
Yeah, this stuff happens. It's very real. So
we've had many conversations with customers and just saying to them, look, you've got to have a backbone. You've got to, ask the questions and stand up to them. Don't just roll over. It's really sad when you see it. And people are still scared of them. There's still got this fear of banks, You've got to stand up for them, stand up for what is right. It's your money, and tell them that, and just say it politely and say, I want my money. I don't need to tell you what I'm doing with it. I want my money.
Yeah, exactly. So look, when a bank takes too many risks, how does it play out? Well, there's kind of two main routes. And the first one is something you might have heard of called bailouts. And this is where governments inject money into banks. Well, the last time I checked, I don't know about you, Lee, but governments don't have any money. They get their money from the people. So that is, let's condense the whole journey. That is the people bailing out banks. Let's just get this straight. You are depositing your money into the bank. The bank are keeping 10% on deposit. They're loaning out the rest. They're taking risks. They're paying out all these big bonuses. Everything's good when they're making profit. And when they take too many risks, then us, the people, have to bail them out. We don't see any of the profit. We don't see any of the good bits, but we get all the bad bits. And what this does is it creates a culture where banks don't need to be accountable and responsible for the risk that they take because somebody else bails them out. It's like governments. They're in power. They borrow all this money. They make all these promises. If they don't deliver and they don't pay the money back that they've borrowed, who cares? They did their time and they move on, and they're not held accountable. It's the same. Governments and banks, they're in bed together, and they allow this to happen between them. So I know this is not it's not the most motivational, inspiring message, but we have to be real about what is going on and who pays at the end of the day.
Without that accountability, what do you expect?
Yep.
What should people expect without that accountability? It's a crazy system that's been set up. Well, it doesn't work for us, the people, but it works for the people who set it up in the first place and understand it. And that's why we're here, to try and make sure that normal, average, everyday, hardworking families understand it, so they can play the game and they can win the game.
Yeah. And also, there's this whole phrase that came out in around 2008. It's too big to fail, where banks banks buy up other banks, and they get so big that it would actually be catastrophic if they were to fail. So we're not saying that government shouldn't do that. We're just saying, look, this is the reality of what happens, and maybe they shouldn't get that big in the first place. You know, I guess there's a whole bigger conversation there to be had. But what we're saying is, be aware of the process, be aware of the possibilities. So that's something people might be aware of. The other side of it, called bail-ins, which are becoming more popular, but they're, I guess, talked about less. Now, what a bail-in says is if the bank become, you know, that financial difficulty, they've taken too many risks, they are looked after by the creditors and depositors of that bank. This is where, and again, not the normal rules that we use in day-to-day life, or your budgeting or your personal finances. The bank can use the money that's on deposit, so people's money, to save themselves. So rather than getting the money externally from the government or from us, they are taking it from depositors, and it's all legal. They can do it. So this is becoming more popular because the government bailing out banks is not a popular thing to do. You know, when you're trying to win elections, you know, you've bailed out all these banks. What about us? What about the people? So governments allow banks to take money from depositors, people that have put money in the bank, because it looks better for the government, essentially, which is madness. You know, if you knew this, that you were depositing money into a bank, and if they risk too much of your money, then they can take it to save themselves. So at the end of the day, you as the depositor pay as well. No one's taking accountability, and no one's paying for their mistakes. We actually saw this happen. You know, we hear about, you know, hyperinflation and how all these things have happened in countries, you know, developing countries, Venezuela and Zimbabwe and all these kind of things. This actually happened in Cyprus. And what they said is, if you had 100,000 or more, the bank would take in anything over 100,000, they were taking 60% off it. Taking it off you. It's it, gone.
Wow.
So, and look, people might be saying, well, 100,000 is a lot, and it obviously is. It's a substantial amount of money, but the fact that this can actually happen is crazy in the first place. And that happened. We're not just talking about you know, what could happen. We're saying it's actually happened. Talking about control, another thing that happened in Greece is where Greece defaulted on their debts as a country, even bigger issue now. And they limited cash withdrawals to 60 euros a day.
I remember that.
Yeah, it wasn't even that long ago. And people were queuing up. And if you didn't withdraw on one day, the next day you didn't get two lots. If you missed it on the day, you missed out. Tough luck. So they are controlling what you can do with your money.
I think that went on for 3 years too, didn't it, in Greece? Something crazy.
Yeah.
They were restricting people's money.
There were restrictions. It wasn't always 60 euros for 3 years, but there was some kind of restrictions for 3 years, which is madness. It's Greece and Cyprus. They're not, like we said, they're not developing countries. It's not something that's, you know, from hundreds of years ago, that the financial system doesn't behave like that now. It's a possibility. And that just, for us, that just worries us that could happen. And that's why we're very careful with the amount of money that we have in a bank personally. We don't want to have that vulnerability. Is this all kind of making sense?
Massively, mate. I remember some of it, Adam.
Yeah, it's not that long ago. Just one other thing we want to touch on, because we did some research into this as well. Government deposit protection schemes. So in the UK, it's called the Financial Compensation Scheme. In the US, it's the FDIC, and they're called different things in other countries. What this says is, if you put money into a bank up to a certain amount, in the UK it's £85,000, and the bank defaults and collapses, then the government will cover £85,000 of your money. If you've got more in there, you're not covered, but they'll cover 85,000. Notice it's not the bank that are doing this. It's not the bank that are picking up the pieces. It's the government. And what is this? It's free insurance. Another free service. So red flag, question mark. Why are they giving you free insurance? Why are they insuring your money for free? Because they want people to deposit money into banks. They want this to happen. The government and banks are in bed together, and there's a whole push for you to deposit your money into the bank. They try and make it as attractive as possible. We'll give you interest if you put it in the bank. We'll also insure it so it's super safe. It's backed by the government. The government have no money. The government get their money from us. You're insuring your own money at the end of the day. Let's complete the cycle. Obviously, all of these schemes work very differently, but one thing that we found in the UK, and I'm sure there'll be some details of all the others that are worth taking note of. Let's say there's two different banks, and these banks have got two different names, and you wouldn't know that they're connected. If they are under the same banking license, then you are only covered once. So if you've got bank over here, let's say you've got 85,000, and bank over here, you've got 85,000. If they're under the same banking license, then you're only covered for one lot of 85,000. And there's a list. It's not on the number one search result on Google. It's a bit difficult to find, but it is out there. And you can see all of the banks and which banking license they're under. So again, you can make sure you're not left vulnerable and that you are protected for what you think you're protected for.
Most people I speak to have got no idea about this. I forgot to mention this, Adam, earlier. I spoke to a friend a couple of weeks ago, and he's got a good few quid. And I mentioned this to him, and he had no idea. So he sort of had a bit of panic in his eyes, and he was off. So I haven't spoken to him again since. But yeah, we'll find out, and we'll see, what the outcome is.
It is a shocker.
Yeah, I know we're getting into like the details here, but this is stuff that, again, I think most people are just too busy to look into. We've got strange hobbies, and we like to look into this kind of stuff and research all the details.
Thank goodness you do.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we do, because it can just open people's eyes. And some people might see this information and say, do you know what? I know that now, and I'm still happy doing what I'm doing. Totally fine. It's about whatever you're doing it with your eyes open. I mean, fully aware of all possibilities. Yeah. That's what it's really about. If these financial compensation schemes don't have enough money, which has happened before in 2008, they have to take a loan from the Bank of England. Loans have interest. So what it does is it just stacks up more debt on the taxpayer, and it just kicks the can down the road of a tax on future generations. That's all it does. Yeah. This could all be changed. It could all be changed quite easily. But it would mean that banks aren't making as much profits. They're probably not paying and helping out members of government and this whole kind of elite level of these elite circles that all kind of fund and operate together. It doesn't have to be this way, but it's a big ship to turn around. So what we do is we just say, this is how it is. That's fine. It's probably not going to change anytime soon. We just want to take ourselves out of it. We just don't want to play the game anymore, because it's a game they've created and they've got all the winning cards. So we just say, great, we're taking our ball out. We're not playing. We're going. So let's summarize. Bail-ins, bailouts, financial compensation schemes. Who pays for it at the end of the day? Who pays when it all goes wrong? You do. You pay. There's no other way that they can get the money. It has to come from somewhere, and it comes from the people. I wish people would band together and get this, because it could be overturned actually quite easily. Yeah. Like that quote at the beginning. If people actually understood how it works, there'd be a revolution tomorrow. But yeah, it's not the case. So you've got to decide how much of this game you want to participate in. You know, if you're fully in, then these are the rules. This is how it works. Or if you want to do something different and just play a little bit, or take, you know, not play at all, you have that option. This picture for us just sums it up.
Oh yeah.
The government are feeding the banking system, leaving the people with nothing.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's perfect, isn't it? You don't even need to say anything, do you? You don't need to say any words. It says everything. And we've used this for many years, Adam, haven't we, to explain how it works.
Yeah, it's what's happening all the time, all the time. So look, it wouldn't be right if we didn't talk about gold and silver. So we actually think that gold and silver are a really good solution. They're a really good solution to this problem. And let's go side by side. We're talking about control. So, money in the bank. Who owns the money in the bank? It's the bank. The gold and silver, you own it. No one's doing anything with it. It's yours. Money in the bank, is it leveraged? Is it risked? Absolutely. We've seen that. If you've been on the planet any amount of time, you've seen that banks take risks. Gold and silver, nope, not being risked. It's actually super boring. It sits in a cold, dark room and gathers dust. And I love it. I love that it's boring.
Boring's good.
Yeah. Is it fully insured? Well, money in the bank, no. There's different levels, and still that can be difficult. And also, if the bank are in a financially bad situation, they can bail in and take that money, and have done in the past. Gold and silver, yeah, it's fully insured. The whole value. And even better, because it's not risked and it's fully insured, those two are kind of knit together. So you're really, really protected. Whose balance sheet is it on? Money in a bank, it's on the bank's balance sheet. And that's why they can leverage it and why they own it. But gold and silver, we like to think, is on our personal balance sheet. It's for ourselves. And ultimately, what this is all about is control. Who controls the money in a bank? The bank do. And gold and silver, you do. You can do what you want with it. We always say to customers, look, our preference is to have it in the vault. It's insured, it's looked after, it's in a more secure place. But at the end of the day, this is your metal. If you want to dig a hole and bury it in the garden, you want to stick it under your pillow because you're going to sleep better at night, do it. Because it's yours and you control it. And for us, those are the reasons why we actually want to move away from the banking system as much as we can, without it kind of taking over our lives and that kind of thing. And now why gold and silver just tick that box.
Absolutely. Has silver jumped up, Adam, since when did Dave, when did Lee send that message about?
I didn't see it jumped up.
No? What's the silver like at the moment?
Well, gold and silver dipped, didn't it? It dipped recently, but it's starting to climb again now. The last few days, this week, it's climbing again, isn't it?
Yes.
I think a friend of ours bought some a while ago, and he bought it at 21 or something, and it was.
It's over 22 now, dollars.
Yeah, it's over 22 now, as we sat here. Yeah.
And the gold?
Gold
1880, is it, or something? Or what?
Yeah, 1882. So again, everyone, most people, retail investors, people like me and you, the tendency is when metals go down, is to panic and want to sell. And actually, the professionals that can zoom out and see how a bit of perspective on it and see how things have happened through history, it's actually the time to buy. You want to do the opposite. So we just get excited when it goes down because we think this is a good time to buy. That's a good
way to look at it, mate.
Yeah,
it's something we've talked about for years, Adam, isn't it? It's about doing the opposite to the masses. We're trying to educate the masses to do the opposite to the masses, aren't we? And hopefully one day the masses do the right thing, know what they're doing. But we always said, see what the masses are doing, do the opposite, and most of the time, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be in a better place.
It's funny because the same happens on the other side when metals go up. Which look, they're long term, so it's not really a bad time to buy, but we probably get more people excited and saying I want to buy when it's gone up, which you think the move's happened. You want to get in before the move. So but one thing we would always say is, look, if you've bought some metals and you look at the value today, let's say you bought them a year ago, you look at the value today and the value is up and you're not selling, then cancel the party. because you're not selling. So the price is actually a bit irrelevant. There's two prices that matter: the price you buy at and the price you sell at. In between, doesn't matter. Equally, if you bought a year ago and you look at the price today and it's gone down, again, you're not selling. So don't worry about it. One thing we kind of get people emailing us saying, "Oh, the price has gone down, or the price has gone up."
Yeah, a bit of a panic on sometimes. Yeah.
But are you selling? No intention to sell. Then don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
You've got spare cash, get some more if you ever want to. You know,
yeah.
It's a good time to buy. There's a sale on. There's a sale on. We're not salespeople, obviously. We don't say that, but it just means that there's a sale on. You know.
Yeah, it's
very different thinking, Lee, to the way we used to think. You know, it's a complete opposite to the way we used to think. Because we used to think the same way, Adam, didn't we? I think it went down for the first 2 years when I started buying. It was going down the whole time, so I had to hold strong and try and control my emotions. I tell you,
but when
it was still going down when I bought it.
When you look at those purchases now, though,
you
kept buying as it was going down. You look at them now, and as it's gone up, you're like, that was a good decision.
I think it was like $1,100 an ounce or something. Then I was, I look at it now.
What is it now?
2,000. It's down to just under $1,900 an ounce now. But
oh wow,
1882 or something. But yeah, I started when it was like 1,100. Some people started, well, imagine starting if it was $250 an ounce or something.
Yeah.
So we always say, look, the only wrong time to buy it is tomorrow. I mean, we religiously buy metals every 2 weeks. No matter what the price is, we religiously buy metals every 2 weeks. So because you can also benefit from what's called the pound cost averaging effect. We won't go into it now, but that's people can Google this, and we think that's a good way of buying precious metals also.
But buying small bits regularly, you kind of get it. It smooths out the peaks and troughs of the price. So that's it's a pretty good way to do it.
It's a different strategy, isn't it? But yeah.
Well, great, guys. Absolutely fantastic. I love when we do the show because for me, this was never my strong point. I mean, from, when we started, what show is this now? About 8, no? We done?
Oh, I've done a few, haven't I?
Yeah. So, I mean, from when I started, I was completely like aware with all this thinking, I don't have money to buy gold and silver. It's too expensive. And, when you go through the whole thing, it's just not like that at all. It's completely easy and accessible for every Joe people.
Yeah. Right. How do you feel now, Lee? Having obviously we've been on a few times, and there's some things you don't probably pick up everything every time because we talk about a lot of stuff. But do you feel more confident, and you feel like some of it's sticking? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit thick, like stuff like that, man. I mean, I didn't like sitting at school listening to all that stuff, but for me, this is really educational because, honest to God, Adam, James, I was clueless about the whole financial system. I know how the basics work, but when you broke it down each time and the way you broke it down, someone like me who takes like a few punches to the head needs a little bit more simplicity coming through, the brain barrier. But you guys did it really well, and I do understand a lot more now. And it's accessible for a lot of people, even the ones that were sending me messages. I don't have the money to invest in gold and silver, but yes, you do. You can start as much as you want. It's not like you have to pay like a chunk of gold or a pallet of gold and silver. You can buy small pieces each time you do it, and then before you know it, that small piece is a medium-sized piece, and before you know it, after that, it's a large piece.
Exactly.
People who put the money in the banks for years and years and years, and then get that little bit of interest, and then it's the same thing, but a safer bet.
Far safer. I think the only
over paper currency any day. You can't print gold, can you? So
yeah, and I think obviously from like what we said before, and I think on the last show about school, this should be taught at school, and it's not. And it's like I watched, which is quite interesting. They did this experiment on, I think, 5 years old, where they give them like a set of toys and pens and pencils. And it was a creativity test, and they basically at 5 years old were 98%, right, creative. Then they did it again at 10 years old, and it was something like I think 30%. Then they did it at 15 years old, and it was something like 10%. Then they did it when they were adults, and it was 2%, and that's what school did to them.
Wow. because it's set up. It's set up.
Set up that way to make you feel.
Yeah, and to put you into an industrial job where you the bell
Pay the man the
goes.
money. You be
Yeah.
the same.
I saw I'll just tell you this quick. There was a picture, a meme that I saw where a boss drives up to the company building in a new Ferrari or whatever. And the guy, the employee says, "Oh, that's amazing! Like, look at that." And he says, "Well, look, if you work really hard, you put in the effort, you know, you go above and beyond, and you know, do overtime and stuff like that. Next year, I'll be able to get another one."
Yeah. It's so true, though.
Oh, that's funny, boy. That's good. That.
And
Yeah.
that's how the school system is, isn't it? That the bell goes, you do what you're told, you stand by your desk, you don't talk to your neighbor, and real life just doesn't work like that. And we're just in that industrial mindset. So
It's true. But listen, boys, that was great. Thanks very much. We really enjoy these shows, and very educational and great information.
Yeah, we do our best.
Great stuff.
So,
we try our best over here.
Great.
Hey, good to see you, Lee. Always is. Always good to see you, mate.
No, you too, buddy. See you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. See you then.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks, lad.
See ya. Bye.
Cheers.